Security teams are watching for any sign that Russia or, frankly, any other foreign actor or hackers might try to interfere with Election Day through cyber attacks. Sources tell CNN right now there are no known cyber threats that would likely affect voting or the vote count. Let's talk about all of this with Congressman Adam Schiff of California, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. Thank you for joining me.
It's good to be with you.
Let's talk about this first. You told my colleague Jake Tapper this week that Russia is capable of, quote, doing damage in this election. In the last 24 hours, have you heard about any credible cyber threats targeting this election in any way? Voter registration, location news, anything that could affect the outcome of this election?
You know, I haven't heard anything in the last 24 hours, but the reality is we have seen Russian meddling in the election for months now, and so it takes no leap of faith to know that they can continue to interfere, will likely continue to interfere. It may not be on Election Day, although they certainly have the potential to cause mischief on Election Day, but I think we can expect that whoever wins the election, they're going to continue to hack and dump information if they think they can weaken the U.S. president. So, unfortunately, unless we can establish a strong deterrent, we're likely to see more of this from Russia. We do appear, I think, to have dodged a bullet, and that is one of the things that really concerned me up until this point, was that Russia was going to start doing what they've been doing in Europe, and that is not only hacking and dumping documents, but also massively forging information. And that would have been very difficult to prove a forgery in the last few days of a campaign. So we may have dodged that bullet. But I think we're likely to see continued malevolence from the Russians in the cyber arena.
Here is a common refrain that we've heard throughout this election from Donald Trump on the campaign trail. Listen.
It's a rigged system, folks.
Rigged system.
Totally rigged. Absolutely rigged.
It's a crooked system.
The issue of voter fraud.
Do you believe that Russia and Vladimir Putin have already scored a victory in this election, really before a single vote is counted, at least some of the early votes are in, but by making Americans, contributing to Americans feeling less confident in the system as a whole?
You know, I certainly think they have, in part, achieved that objective, giving Americans less confidence in the result by sowing discord, by turning one against another. So, yes, they've accomplished some of their objectives. I think it's very important, though, for American people to realize that part of the reason they've been able to do this is that they have had a willing party in Donald Trump. If we had a far more typical election where the Republican standard-bearer shared the same views of concern about the adversarial nature of the Russian government, the authoritarian nature of that government, and spoke out against the Russian hacking rather than inviting further hacking, then it would be much more difficult for the Russians. If you didn't have someone saying that the election is rigged and all this kind of thing, that has so played into Russian hands that it's really amplified the mischief the Russians wanted to create.
So as you know, Congressman, the way that Donald Trump puts it in response to what you're arguing is he says, wouldn't it be a good thing if the United States got along with Russia, if there was a stronger relationship between the White House and the Kremlin? You know, he says that would be more productive than what he points to as a failed Russian reset on the part of Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. Your response to that?
My response is, would it be nice? Sure, it would be nice, but that's fantasy land. This is someone who has invaded his neighbor, who seized Crimea. Does Donald Trump expect that if Donald Trump says something nice to Vladimir Putin, he's going to leave Ukraine? I don't think so. Does that mean that Russia is going to stop bombing civilians in Aleppo? I don't think that's going to happen. He's going to stop buzzing our allied and NATO aircraft in Eastern Europe. I don't think that's going to happen, or in the Baltics. So, you know, we have tried to establish a productive relationship with Russia. They're not interested. And part of what Putin believes is that in order to drive up his popularity domestically, he needs a bad guy to be against, and the United States is that bad guy. And frankly, I think Trump is naive to think that a few kind words on his part is going to change that. And I don't think that any commander-in-chief of the United States should be prepared to, as Trump has suggested, recognize, for example, Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea.
I mean, look, as you point out, Russia's got and Putin have plenty of problems domestically, especially when it comes to Russia's own economy and what that means for their citizens. Before I let you go, the White House, as you know, has vowed that the U.S. will respond to Russian hacks. They just haven't made clear, Congressman, how they will do that or when. You've said that unless Russia pays a price, a high price, they will continue to meddle in U.S. affairs. So I wonder, from your perspective, from where you sit on the Intelligence Committee, what should that retaliation look like? Sanctions, a counter hack? What would be most effective? What would Putin listen to?
Well, I think that what would most get the Kremlin's attention is if we're able to work with countries in Europe that have been the subject of similar meddling by Russia, and we impose additional sanctions on Russia. Their economy really is their weakest point. And just a discussion of sanctions really sets Putin off. So plainly they're sensitive to any additional economic pain. And I would probably couple that with a cyber response so that Putin understands, and it doesn't have to be something that is made public, but Putin understands he is vulnerable too. This is no free lunch for the Kremlin. And that if they're going to meddle this way, they can be exposed in ways that would be very hurtful for Putin and his political standing. So I think both in a overt way and a covert way, we should respond.
Congressman Adam Schiff, I'm out of time, but thank you for being with me tonight.